Hi, this is Craig Howard. Today is Labor Day, and it's kind of a special day. It's a day that was set aside that's different than most other holidays because rather than celebrating an event, it celebrates those that have labored to build our country and to make our country what it is, and it just celebrates the hardworking laborer that has contributed to society and has contributed to the well-being of our nation. It's not something, labor is not something that everybody enjoys, let me put it that way. It's not something that everybody enjoys. In fact, there are a lot of people in our world that will do everything that they can to avoid whatever labor they can. Some people don't labor because they have good reason. Their health or their physical condition just doesn't allow them to. Although labor can take on a lot of different forms. We can labor with our mind if we can't labor with our hands. I've met a lot of people who are unable because of physical limitations to do a lot of things, and yet they accomplish great things. What was his name? Hawking was his last name, who spent his life, he's a quadriplegic, but was one of the brightest individuals in our society and solved all sorts of problems for society, but couldn't get out of a wheelchair. So labor can take on a lot of forms, but there are some people that think labor isn't a God-given opportunity. It's not something that's good. In fact, I read an article I thought was really interesting that Abraham Lincoln wrote to his brother back in 1850. His brother, actually his stepbrother, was constantly writing him and asking to borrow money. And Lincoln, being the gentle, generous person that he was, would send him the money. And finally, it reached a point where Lincoln said, you know what, he wrote him back, and he said, I'm not going to send you the money this time. He said, you have a defect in your character. And basically, he says, I figured out what the defect is. He said, you're not lazy, but you still have this thing with idleness. You won't work a complete day. And he said, you'll get out and you'll do all these things that you want to do, but you won't work. And he said, so I'm not going to send you the money right now. And he said, instead, I'm going to propose that you go out and you find a job and you earn a paycheck, and for every dollar you earn from, at the time he was writing, he said from now until May, he said for every dollar you earn, I will give you another dollar. And he said at the end of this time you will have learned, you will have accomplished a couple of things. Number one, he said, you will have paid off your debt. But he said number two, you will have learned the value of taking care of yourself through work. But he said, if I send you the money, if I just give you the money, all that's going to happen is you're going to be right back in this same situation next year. You know, the Bible had something to say a little bit about this. It says over in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23, it says, in all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. Now, I want you to focus on that word all, because it says in all labor there is profit. Even if it's a job you're not getting paid for, even if it's a job that you're just going to help somebody else, even in that there's profit. In all labor that we do, we profit in some way. It might be by the sense of accomplishment we get in doing it. It might be we profit from just looking at something and say, I did that, I accomplished that. It might be the profit we get in realizing that we just helped somebody else out and made a difference in somebody's lives. It's hard to tell the different ways, but it says in all labor, in everything that we do, there's profit. So I began to think about that, and I began to think about how we live in a society that doesn't really, we talk a lot about work, but it seems like the thing that we celebrate most, and don't get me wrong when I say this, but it seems like the thing that we celebrate most is avoiding work. or avoiding labor. Whether we're laboring with our minds or we're laboring with our hands, we would much rather just sit back and relax. And sometimes we don't realize that when we do that, when we're not engaging in the labor, when we're not doing the things that we should do, that we're not only hurting ourselves, but generally speaking, we hurt the people around us. I read about a woman she had 3 children. I think it was three children. She lived in Germany. Her husband was just an absolute waste. He would not work. He would not help with the household. He wouldn't do anything. And she got frustrated. In fact, she got so frustrated that when it came, the one thing the husband did well was build up a $5,000 debt of fines in parking tickets. And so that car was registered in her name. So ultimately, she was responsible for the fines. And when the police came around to arrest her for these unpaid parking tickets, she looked at her husband, who had done nothing. She had gone out and she was keeping the house by cleaning houses and taking care of people and earning what money she could to keep the household together. But when they came to arrest her, she said, I'm going to get 3 meals a day, a place to sleep, a place to rest. I'm going to get taken care of. I don't have to go clean houses. I don't have to put up with this nonsense. And she smiled. She thanked the police for arresting her. She was excited about the fact that she was being arrested because she had been so beaten down by this individual who would do nothing to contribute, who would do nothing to labor. All he wanted to do was be taken care of. And I thought that's probably the first time in their lives that the police actually were thanked for arresting somebody and for being taken off to jail for, I think it was 2 or 3 months. I don't know how the family got along. I don't know how the father got along in that time. But anyhow, all labor is profitable. It's profitable to us personally. It's profitable to the people around us. It makes a difference in the lives of our family, but it also makes a difference in the lives of our country, of our society. And I'll tell you another place it makes a difference. If you're a Christian, it makes a difference in your testimony. There is a certain amount of respect that people receive for being people that are willing to labor. If you're a person who's willing to labor to help somebody else out, if you're a person that, we go out. I took the kids out this past summer from camp, and we went out. And if you were in camp and you're watching this, we went out to this home, and this lady needed help to clean up her yard and do some things, remove some posts, and do some things that needed done around the yard. It was hot. It was a hot couple of days, and the kids went out there and they worked. And I'm not kidding you. I was working with them, and it was so hot. They were just, by the end of the time that we were there, they were just dragging, but they were still going. They were pulling branches down and doing all this stuff, and they were working so hard. They had just worn themselves out. And I was so proud of them, even though this lady, she just kept saying, I need you to come over here and do this, and I need you to come over here and do this. And the kids were kind of like, she's bossy. She just doesn't seem to, she just thinks that we're this free labor source that's there to take care of her, and she doesn't appreciate what we're doing. She doesn't appreciate the heat that we're working in. And at the end of our time there, we did what we always do. I had the group gather in a circle with the lady of the house, and I said, we'd like to have prayer with you before we leave. And she and her mother came over, and they got in our circle, and I asked the kids, like I always do, I said, would one of you like to lead in prayer? And there was sort of a hesitancy, like there always is, and the lady spoke up, and she said, I would like to. And I said, okay. So she began to pray. And her prayer blew me away. She said, God, thank you so much for sending these wonderful, amazing kids that have worked so hard and made such a difference in my life. And they've received nothing for it except your love. And Father, thank you so much for them. They are such a special group. And I just want to praise you for sending them here. And I want to thank you. And I want to thank them, God. I pray that you'll just bless their lives. And I'm going to tell you something. I was blown away because I thought she didn't appreciate it at all. But you know, when we're willing to labor with our hands to the glory of God, we can make an amazing difference. All labor is profitable. It's profitable for your family. It's profitable for your country. It's profitable for you. And it's profitable for your testimony. Well, you have a great day. My time is gone. I pray God's richest blessing on your life. And I will see you, Lord willing, tomorrow.